All right. What's up? What's up? Welcome back to Salt Lake Takes. We're back here in the new setup. Everything is getting together over here pretty nicely. It's taken a second to, kind of move in. I think we moved in on Friday. But yeah, everything's starting to look pretty solid over here. You might get some more stuff to put back here, but got some vinyls as is, getting that stuff ready to go. The Wi-Fi should be good for this stream. It's been kind of spotty here and there, but if that kind of spots up, it should get up and running right after that. But yeah, we're sitting here 2 months away from the season start tomorrow, actually, because the first Jazz game will be on October 20 or October 25th, I'm pretty sure, against the Kings. So tomorrow will be about 2 months away from that start date. So we're getting closer and closer to that Jazz season start date because we're kind of dragging on to the off season at this point. But we keep moving on. We have FIBA basketball getting played tomorrow. 5 Jazz players participating in that event. You got Markkanen, Clarkson, Fontecchio, Olynyk, and Kessler all getting some opportunity there. Markkanen, Jordan Clarkson, and Simone Fontecchio will probably have more of their offensive focus on their teams because they're probably the best player on their respective teams. Markkanen showing off for Finland like he usually does. Clarkson gets that special treatment like he does in the Philippines, and Fontecchio is probably the best player that plays for Italy. Olynyk is pretty stacked Canada roster, so he'll get some good PT, but he'll probably be outside by some of their 7 stars. I think they have 7 NBA players on Canada's team. That's pretty impressive. And then Walker Kessler, if you've watched any of the Team USA stuff, he hasn't really played much, and maybe that ends up changing with time. But Steve Curry is going to roll with a small ball starting 5. Emphasize the shot creation outside the arc, and Kessler doesn't really have that at this point. Maybe with some time, he'll get some of that squared away. But until then, he's kind of sitting back and getting some good experience, and you can't really complain as a Jazz fan. Rather be there than kind of sit at home. He's getting some good experience with some of the best big men in the league. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. That's enough on FIBA because that'll start tomorrow. And once that gets underway, we can talk about that. But we got ranking the 3 best options to start at forward for the Jazz in 2023-24. New setup looks sweet. Appreciate it. Hopefully got some more going over there soon enough. But that's what we got for now. Appreciate it. But yeah, I'll be ranking the 3 best options to start at forward for the Jazz next year because Lauri Markkanen is going to take that 1 forward spot, rather to be a small forward, power forward. Probably going to be the small forward because he spent a lot of the time there last year, and he projects as like that. We got cool poster. Appreciate it. We got 9 of them back there, I guess. But yeah, Markkanen's kind of locked in that starting role, so you don't really see anyone else taking that. But there is an opportunity to be gotten there, whether it be from Taylor Hendricks or Kelly Olynyk or John Collins. It's a pretty tight contest there. I've seen a lot of Jazz fans kind of pin John Collins into that starting role. I don't know if it's that cut and dry, given that he is a first-year Jazzman and he really is coming off a poor season, all things considered. I wouldn't really pin him in as like this locked-in starter like I would for Kessler or Jordan Clarkson. So I think it's a pretty good discussion to have. But I think there's about 3 guys to be had there for the conversation. Yeah, because it comes down to what you really value in a team. You have the rookie. You have if you're basing off clear upside, you might be going for Collins, or if you're going from established talent, you might be going with the Olynyk route for the starting 4. But I think it's a good discussion to have. But we can go ahead and start off here with my 3rd option. I would probably go ahead and pin Taylor Hendricks there as my 3rd best to take the spot at power forward, because he is still in his rookie year, and I think he'll still have some time to grow in that Jazz system. But he was the best available prospect there at 9 overall for the Jazz this year, and he has a lot of room for growth, despite what a lot of scouts really tell you about Hendricks, because he's usually touted as like this 3-and-D type of player. But I would consider him a little bit more than that, or at least at a ceiling he could be, because he has all the size at 6'9" and has the defensive ability and the 3-point ability already down. So of course he's going to be kind of centered into that role as just like a 3-and-D role player. But these players at their peak, so he's a 6'9" forward with elite 2-way ability. Or not elite 2-way. I'll settle down a little bit there, but he has all the potential to really come in and just be like that 2-way established presence like you've seen around the league. Take full charge of these teams. Like, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna compare him to like LeBron, but you see like the builds of like the wings of like you have like LeBron, the KD, the Kawhi, and like the two-way presence is super valued. And while he's not the most polished player at the moment, you can see the vision like, okay, he has the size to match up with the best players in the league, the defensive ability, and if he gets that scoring and shot creation down, I think the sky's the limit. But as far as right now goes, I consider wouldn't really consider Taylor Hendricks to be the favorite to start day one, just because he is pretty raw as a prospect. I think, I mean, because what really held him back from being more in that top 10 prospect in this draft was what he failed to bring to the table outside of his 3 and D type of ability, because he doesn't really have that much upside as a playmaker just yet. That shot creation for himself isn't quite there yet, and still the ball handling and like stuff to really try and have that offensive workload isn't quite there yet. So of course he's going to be in that fourth, fifth scoring option to start off for the Jazz, but I think with time and the right development, you could really see him start to blossom into this two-way threat that a lot of teams have begun to base their teams around. It's the same thing with Keontae George too, because I think you could easily see Taylor Hendricks start by February or March by the time the Jazz get really a feel for the way their offenses or their entire team is gone. Uh, but I think you could see a collection of Keontae George and Taylor Hendricks and really go with the youth movement as far as going further down the line when the Jazz are get all their things squared away for the season. Or if they're bottoming out towards the bottom 10 of the league, maybe you start to see some more of that youth movement like we did this year. But until that time comes, I don't really see him coming in as a day one starter. It would be an exciting move for sure to come in as a day one starter, because I mean, once you get that, you kind of fully dedicate yourself to the youth movement. But the Jazz haven't really done that up to this point. I think they are fully committed on trying to come in and win games now, and that's a respectable tactic to come in on the season with. And I feel like most teams probably should have that day one confidence in their roster. But with that confidence, you're not going to come in and start Taylor Hendricks day one. You're just not. I mean, he's coming from UCF, which isn't really like a powerhouse school. He's going to have some time to build into that NBA frame and that NBA body and try and enhance his skill set to the next level, because he really does have the type of tools you'd want for a modern NBA player. But it's if he can really put it all together, is if he will really be the starting four for this team moving forward. And the plan moving forward will be to start Taylor Hendricks. I don't want to take anything away from that, because he will be the long term starter. But with how quick he really does it will be the question, and I don't really see that being the case at this moment. Maybe there's some shocking training camp and preseason really change that, but I don't know. I think the Jazz are pretty set with what they have right now. And maybe down in February, March, you start to see Hendricks get some more opportunity. But those minutes are going to be harder to come by when you're first coming in the league, especially on a team with the Jazz that have 3 first-round picks fighting for it, along with just a good roster surrounding him. It'll be hard to really establish yourself as like a top 5 player, a starting 5 player on this team like right off the bat. That's what I would say. Going on to number 2 here, I think that's pretty much covers it for Taylor Hendricks. I mean, he's a rookie. Like, you know what you're gonna get out of him. Actually, you don't. You don't know what you're gonna get out of him. That's why I would wait and see later on to the season before I start making any moves. Maybe year 2 would be the year that he comes in and is a starter, but I think rookie year, it's just a little bit too much for him. But let's go on and move on to number 2. And more of a hot take here, I guess. I would say John Collins would be more of an option to come off the bench for me rather than to come in as a day one starter. And that may be a little more of a less talked about topic for Jazz fans, because I've seen a lot of people just kind of be like, yeah, it'll be Markkanen, Collins, and Kessler being the 3, 4, and 5. I don't know about that, because his ceiling is definitely high for sure, because he was a 20 and 10 type of guy in Atlanta. He was, like this rising coming star. I mean, you saw, I think it was the Atlanta Hawks Twitter, the tweet out, it was like future MVP. It was him sitting next to Kevin Durant. It was a now MVP and a future MVP. And it was him sitting next to Kevin Durant. And it was posted in like 2018. And it's like, yeah, he had some people with like some MVP, expectations for him. He just kind of fallen off the cliff from that. So I don't know if you're going to expect that with the Jazz, anything like that. But the ceiling is definitely high there. But is it a realistic ceiling to have is my question, because of course, yeah, he has averaged 20 and he has averaged over 20 points per game, but so is Colin Sexton. And I don't know if he's going to go reaching those heights again. Maybe he does and proves me wrong, but I think to expect players to come into a new situation and immediately expect them to evolve in like their former selves is a bit high of a reach for me. But the issue with Collins, I feel like, is his fit. I think his fit within this team is a bit shaky. because he is a defensive liability at times, and his 3-point shooting has been shaky. And it is mainly an interior offensive game, and I find that fit to be questionable next to Markkanen and Kessler because Markkanen, as is, struggles to create shots for others and for himself, and Kessler is not he's not really a shooter by any means. So by pairing Collins, that kind of fits along with those two weaknesses. I don't know if that's going to be the best situation for his growth. And I think if you're going to try and bring him into a new situation and expect the most out of him, you're going to want to put him or put him in a position to succeed. And that for me would not be in a starting role with this team. More of what I would expect is to be more of a more dominant, bench contributor. And for a team like the Jazz that have so many mouths to feed, where are you going to find that career resurgence in the starting lineup with Collins? He's not taking shots away from Markkanen. He shouldn't be taking away shots from Kessler. Jordan Clarkson will get his, and that's not even counting for guys like Taylor Hendricks and Keontae George. They're going to be coming in and commanding more of that offensive workload. So you may say, like, yeah, John Collins did average 20 and 10 in Atlanta, but yeah, it was on a pretty bad team, all things considered, with not many mouths to feed. We got a question here. What's up, Jericho? Keep this up. I'm liking your content. Let's go, Jazz. Which player in this international FIBA tournament has the biggest advantage? See, that's a tough question there. Honestly, a great question, I would say. Biggest advantage. I mean, clearly you have three guys. You have Markkanen, you have Kessler, and you have Clarkson. There are three of the best guys on this Jazz roster. They're gonna be playing in FIBA. I think the biggest advantage will probably be um, hmm, I would say Markkanen or Clarkson for that because Kessler is not he's probably on like the same like top 3 player for the Jazz, but he's not going to get that opportunity like you'd like him to see. But Markkanen and Clarkson are going to be the best player on their team. I would probably say Markkanen just for the sake of he is a better player and he does have the number one or he will be the number one option on Finland. I wouldn't count out Jordan Clarkson though because he does have the same kind of situation, but I just wouldn't. I'd put more stock in the Markkanen just because he is a better player of those two. But yeah, don't count out Olynyk though. Olynyk will be a pretty nice player for Canada. I'm just not sure of the amount of opportunity he'll get with the mouths they have to feed. But yeah, appreciate the question. Great question, I would say. But let me get back to what I was going on John Collins. I think the best way for you to really get the most out of him will be to bring him off the bench to start. I mean, you brought him in with a package consistent of Rudy Gay and a second-round pick. It's not like you have a lot invested into him. You don't have to feel pressure to start him from day one. You can bring him in off the bench and then keep a pretty consistent lineup from what you had last year and then see what he can do in a more reserve role and have more offensive responsibility on the offensive side of the ball on the second unit. Because, I mean, when it comes to the second unit, you'll have Taylor Hendricks trying to get his feet wet probably. I don't see him really starting on day one. Keontae George, same type of deal. And Chris Dunn, Taylor Horton-Tucker, both guys that aren't really going to take a ton of offensive workload. And then Bryce Sensabaugh, also a rookie. And then any other guy you'd want to put down there. Collins will be the best option on that bench unit if you were to put him there. And I think if you did put him there, that gives you a really solid second unit to move forward with. And if he comes in fully healthy and ready to go, by all means, throw him in the starting lineup. But going off of what I've seen, I don't really expect him to come in and average much different than what he did in Atlanta, because one of the biggest things is going to be his 3-point shot. You'll hear a lot of people come in, and if you start to struggle from 3, it'll be like, oh, can he shoot? Is he able to shoot? Because his finger is really messed up. I think last time I checked, it was his ring finger. I don't know if it's on left or right, but it's like swelled up like the size of a mini donut. It's nuts. It's like, so and it sounds like that might be an issue that persists for his entire career. And if that's the case, I mean, kiss any chance of getting like a 40-point 3-point or 40% from 3 goodbye. Like shooting with that type of form is going to be incredible. Yeah, I think if he comes in fully healthy, ready to go, the sky is the limit for Collins, like it would be Hendricks. But I think the fit there next to Kessler is going to be an odd one, very similar to what he saw next to Clint Capella in Atlanta. So that's why I would say if he comes in fully healthy with a nice 3-point shot and is able to space the floor well for the Jazz, that'd be a nice fit. But if he comes in with, a premier, like interior, like dominant type of offense, like he has the past two seasons in Atlanta, I think it's at least last season. I don't know if it was, if his finger injury was persistent the past 2 years, but if he comes in with the same type of play style that he's had in Atlanta, I would find it hard to start him for the Jazz. I just think that it's going to be a hard hard sell for me for his development. I don't think you're putting him in the best position to succeed. Because let's say for the Jazz starting five, you're going to have, let's just say for argument's sake, you have Clarkson, Abaji, Markkanen, Collins, and Kessler. First of all, you have no playmaking in that lineup whatsoever. Clarkson is not going to be your ideal point guard to move the ball around at that point. Abaji is not moving the ball around. Kessler is not moving the ball around, and neither is Markkanen. I don't know. Like I know the point guard has been a super like heavy debate right there, but I mean, who are your playmakers on that team that are going to like pass the ball around? You don't have many. You don't, and I think with the other option that you have at forward, you will in Kelly Olynyk. But I'll get to him a little bit later. My case for him, but I just think the fit is the part that really bugs me with Collins, and really prevents me from putting him in that starting conversation. Well, he is in the conversation for sure. But for me to really tout him as like, yeah, I think he should start above, any other guys. I don't know if it's going to be that compelling of a case for me. Um, but I think if he's coming into a new situation in Utah, bring him off the bench in a second unit where he's going to have a lot of responsibility and a lot of freedom to really do what he wants. That's going to be the best way to get the best version of himself, rather than trying to force him into a lineup with a lot of great players, but you're not going to get the most out of him. And with paying $25 million to him over the next 3 seasons, I would like the most out of my player. And even if that means coming off the bench, I'm okay with that. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it would be a bad decision to start John Collins, because of course they traded for him for a reason. They have a plan for him. But in terms of what I'm seeing, I would probably expect Kelly Olynyk to be the best power forward option on this team. Or I would say, start next to Lauri Markkanen and then put him at the four. Whatever you want to consider Lauri Markkanen, this is what this would be. But I think Kelly Olynyk would be the best option at the four, starting next to Lauri Markkanen for a variety of reasons. But I just think it's absolutely the best fit that this roster has on day one. I mean, Olynyk really brings what this roster needs in that starting four spot. He keeps continuity with this team, which is kind of what this team has been doing the entire offseason. They didn't make many moves. The only moves that really made were drafting the guys that they did and then bringing in John Collins. And with the stake that they brought in John Collins with, it's not like they have to feel obligated to push Kelly Olynyk out of what they've been doing. They have all the means to go and start him again, and it'd be completely fine. The fit itself worked pretty fine last year. It was just the Jazz were not really the best team to stack up in the West, so they decided to rest their guys. But I mean, like we saw last year, the pairing of Markkanen and Olynyk and Kessler works really well, and putting him next to a improved surrounding cast with a bunch of younger guys and more depth at his position, it might take some more responsibility off him and might be able to make him a little bit more efficient and better. I mean, he came really close to shooting 40% from three last year, let alone that's really great. If he's able to get those numbers up on less shot attempts, on better shots, but he could easily do that in the starting lineup. And two things that stuck out to me for Olynyk, making him the best power forward option for this team. I would say his ability to shoot the ball is better than anyone else at the position would be able to have. And that's very valuable to have at the four, especially having that stretch four is very important to have. And then being the best playmaker of this group is very important, especially with the roster this Jazz team has on hand right now. Because you're not going to have the traditional distributing point guard to come in and lead this offense at the one. You might have to find that at other positions. And if it comes down to that, I don't think you're going to expect Markkanen or Kessler to do that. That would come down to Olynyk. Olynyk was coming down and bringing the ball past half court sometimes toward the end of the last season. And he was close to 4 assists a game last year. So for his position, he's creating a nice amount of plays, more than what you'd expect from Hendricks or Collins here. Let's say we got a question from Parker. When is the Jazz's next realistic championship window? I think you gotta wait a couple years for that one. But I think, let's see. So you get a year of progression under your belt this year. Let's say you get around, let's say 35, 40 wins is a realistic, expectation for this team. Maybe not playoffs just yet, but we're getting really close. Another year under your belt, maybe you're like right there. You may be in the playoff discussion after next year, after a year of progression of your guys getting another offseason under your belt. I think maybe one more after that. I think you have this season, next year, and then the year after that, you're going to have more draft picks, more progression from your young guys. Probably maybe a star traded for here and there. But I think give it 3 years when the Jazz's when their draft capital is able to fully develop, I think that would be a better window for them to look at rather than right now. Because right now they're not going to be competing for much. It's just too much of a battle in the West, and the team is just not good enough. And everyone knows that the Jazz are not going to be winning an NBA championship this year. Spoiler alert. But I would say realistic championship window probably around 3 years would be pretty realistic. 3 to 5 years, or within that window, 3 to 5 years. That would be a pretty good guess for me. But yeah, great question there. Might take a little bit. Maybe it's a little quicker than we expect. But as far as this season goes, the best way for the Jazz to win games now would be to start Kelly Olynyk at power forward. But if you add that shooting and playmaking to your team, like I was saying, if you add that to your starting lineup next to Markkanen and Kessler, that's going to be the best fit that you have on this team. Because of course, Hendricks is the long-term starter of this team, and he will develop nicely. But again, he doesn't provide what this team needs from day one. He's not fully polished enough yet. He just simply isn't. And then Collins, you don't really know what you're getting out of either of those two guys, especially Collins. He's an absolute wild card. He could be anything. But Kelly Olynyk, you know what you're getting. He's extremely consistent, has been consistent for the past few years. He is a veteran on this team and on an expiring deal, and that leads me to what I was going to say. Olynyk is on an expiring deal. Next year will be his last, so if there was ever a time to make a move to deal him or capitalize on his value, it would be this offseason, or not this offseason, this trade deadline. If there's ever a time to capitalize on Olynyk's trade value, it would be at this trade deadline. And the way to do that would be by playing him. So you get him on the floor towards the first half of the season, and that gives you the best opportunity to capitalize on his value. See what he has. Other teams are looking for a contending, a big man to help him contend, shoot the ball really well. I mean, that's really valuable. What Kelly Olynyk can bring to a championship team is probably worth a first-round pick. And that's what the Jazz have been looking for, for however many trade, it'll be their second trade deadline, but they love their first-round picks. And I think what Kelly Olynyk at his peak can bring to a championship team, he can provide more draft capital for the Jazz. So while, starting Kelly Olynyk might not be the immediate, or it might be the immediate answer, but it won't be the long-term answer. You can easily develop him into a first-round pick or some or comparable assets and capitalize him from that. And I think that might be the best way to move forward if you were the Jazz. I don't see much better than capitalizing on what you have with Kelly Olynyk, dealing him off, giving Taylor Hendricks and John Collins more opportunity. That seems like the best way to go about things if you're the Jazz. And maybe that comes from, maybe starting John Collins from day one and having Kelly Olynyk compete for that off the bench. Or maybe it comes from starting Taylor Hendricks. I don't know. But any of these three players could realistically have a good case for number one. I just don't know which is the right answer at this point. I would lean towards Olynyk. But training camp and preseason will be telling to see how this actually shakes out. Because, of course, I can say all I can right now and act like I know everything. This can all completely change in a month, because training camp will start around September or October. So a little bit over a month, we'll figure out more details on that end. But as far as things are concerned right now, from what we've seen, I would probably start Kelly Olynyk right next to Lauri Markkanen. You have a front court of Markkanen, Olynyk, and Kessler. Exact same thing what you had last year. You add the guys that you did this year. You reevaluate your roster. You let your young guys play. And then you analyze the roster and all right, after your in the offseason, next offseason, you're going to be like, all right, what does this team need? What can we add? And that would be the best way to evaluate your team moving forward. But you haven't heard anything from the Jazz, so all of this is completely speculation. Any move that I can predict could be 180 degrees different when you're looking forward a month from now. Because as far as the Jazz have said, they haven't said a word as far as who will start day one, because they shouldn't. They don't know who's going to start day one. But yeah, I would lean Olynyk just because he has probably he probably has the best of what this Jazz team needs right now. And for the Jazz right now, that's what they want to do. They want to win games as far as they can. And when they realize they're overmatched, they're going to make moves to their roster. And that's what to be excited about as a Jazz fan. Seeing how this team can improve upon from last season will be great to see. As far as anything else on Jazz news, I don't know much else on anything notable. The Jazz are scheduled to play preseason in Hawaii. That's pretty cool. All the proceeds from that are going towards the Maui Fire. So that's pretty nice to see from the Jazz and the Clippers there. So I forget the date on that, but that is something to look forward to. I think it's the first preseason game that the Jazz are playing are going to be will be in Hawaii, so that'll be nice. Uh, but yeah, as far as I have, that's probably about it. I've made my case. I've said my piece. That's probably all about I need to do today. Um, Once the season starts picking up, we'll have longer episodes and have some more diverse content coming out. But as of right now, we're kind of dealing with the cards that we have until the 2 months of the season starts. So maybe next week we'll have some more FIBA information to disclose and maybe talk about here and see how these Jazz players really played. But if you guys have any suggestions on what you want me to cover throughout these next month of the NBA offseason, send it my way. I'd love to see it because we're kind of dry out here, trying to find some good ideas to cook with and make some good shows with. But yeah, we're making some forward progress going into the NBA season. Once that kicks off, we'll really be in gear over here. But yeah, that's about all I have today. If you all want to see more Jazz content, be sure to check out Inside the Jazz on Sports Illustrated. Make sure to check out our Facebook, our Twitter, our YouTube, all Inside the Jazz. I forget, actually, the app might be different, but just look up Inside the Jazz on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, and you'll probably find us. If you want more from me, you can find me at Jared Cook NBA on Twitter. Might have some YouTube content coming soon for the Jazz. Hopefully it ends up going that way. But yeah, that's about all I have for you all today. Hope you all enjoyed. And yeah, I'll see you all next week. See ya.